Hey, welcome back to Real Talk. I'm Brad. She's Michál. What's going on?
Not too much.
Do you want to talk about cursing some more like we did last week?
I think you guys might have had a little too much fun with that.
So no?
I mean, I'm good. Oh boy.
What are we talking about?
Well, you guys were talking about those naughty words last week, and it got me thinking. I would venture to say, tell me if you agree, there are words way naughtier, way more destructive and damaging than any of those curse words.
Like? Are you going to teach us new words today on Real Talk?
Anytime we use words to gossip,
Oh.
way more harmful, damaging,
More destructive.
than any curse word
than
you could
curse
throw at
words.
me.
Tell me more.
So I think it's like this thing that we start probably in middle school, and unfortunately, I think a lot of us have not grown out of, and I think there's no two sides to it. No one's going to come out from the other side and say, well, yeah, I mean, if you gossip in this scenario, it's actually good, it's actually healthy.
Oh.
But yet we still find ourselves in this trap. I think even worse, not just as adults, as believers, there's this, like what I like to call Christian gossip. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah. So, okay, back up for a second. So what you're telling me is no one is going to be pro-gossip.
I hope not.
You don't think anybody's going to be like, gossip is awesome. And when you say gossip, you mean what?
So it's a good point, because I feel like sometimes we try and justify, well, it's not gossip if it's based on fact. If it's based on rumor, that's gossip.
Okay.
But I don't know that there is really a distinction.
So when you're saying gossip, you're having a connotation about it. It's not just talking about somebody like when they're not there. It's talking negatively about somebody.
Right.
Right? Oh yeah, okay, that's good. So there's no occasion where gossip is a good thing, where someone's going to argue for gossip is what you're saying.
I don't think so.
Do Christians gossip?
So I think there's this slippery slope, whether it's intentional or
Slippery slope,
unintentional,
okay.
where I can see someone with the best intentions sharing a prayer request with someone. And before you know it,
right.
they're sliding down that
request.
slope where there's probably way more
Yeah.
details that need to be shared under the guise of a prayer request.
Oh, a prayer request. Yeah, listen, could you pray for my neighbor? She's having an affair with the mailman. Like, I just want you to pray with her. Pray for her, right?
I mean, that's an important
Yeah.
detail that you would need to know.
Yeah, right. We do hide behind it. What about venting? I just need to
another good
vent
one.
for a minute, right? It's like, okay, we all have that like pressure. We need some sort of a pressure release. And we do it through talking.
And does that does that justify it?
Oh, that's good.
So I think what's interesting too is we know gossip to be a sin, and I think if you look at the motives of why you're gossiping, it probably unveils all kinds of other sins, right? So anger, in that example you just gave, or jealousy or pride, like doesn't that make you feel better that, oh, well, I mean, he looks like he has it all together, but he's got that going on, and I don't. At least I have that.
Juicy tidbit, let me...
Well, and quite honestly, like, isn't it easier to talk about someone else's messiness than it is your own?
Yeah.
It's an easy trap to fall into.
Well, you know, I just thought too, like, we talked about this last week with cursing. It's not just about cursing. It's about what we're supposed to do with our speech, right? So Ephesians 4 talks about building each other up with our words. So it's not just the gossip itself, but is it even that we're using words wrongly again?
This comes up several times throughout the Bible. I want to look at two verses from, did you feed the dog
I want
today?
to do this. Nala, hey. Hi, girl. Come here. Look what I have.
Did you get fed today?
Look what I have, Nala. Yeah, that's a good girl. There was a rumor we'd have a pet this week, so we got Nala.
She's a good fit. She
Right?
matches the set. She
Look
looks
at
great.
her.
So I want to look at these two verses in Proverbs.
I want to play with Nala.
Nala never gossips. Proverbs 11:13, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person keeps a secret. And then again in Proverbs 20, a gossip betrays confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. So I think the first thing that pops out of me is
too much.
there's no distinction. He isn't saying, well, as long as you're gossiping about all factual information, it's okay. Like, yeah, he's someone who talks too much. And I think it's interesting. He's not just telling us how to behave. He's warning us about people who we're hanging around with. You heading out for the day?
Nala, Come here, girl.
Gosh.
That's a good girl. Look how petite she is. So this is terrible. Listen, I don't know the reference. I think this is in the Bible. Isn't there something about where words are many, sin abounds? It's like when our motor mouths get going, what happens is usually not a good thing.
Well, yeah, go back to the prayer request. You can share a prayer request with very, very minimal information. Like that example you gave, pray for my friend's marriage, is quite frankly enough. And even more so, you could even say, you know what, pray for my neighbor. She's going through something right now. Like God knows, we don't know, but you're right. The more information, the more we talk, that's typically when we get ourselves into trouble.
I know. Betrays confidence. So there's like a broken trust involved in gossip also.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And it's funny how we gossip about, there is gossip about, there's like celebrity gossip and there's all that sort of stuff. And it's like, you look at like TMZ that has millions of followers on social media. Like there's that kind of gossip. But so much gossip is about people that we know.
Yeah. Right?
And people that we to their face were their friends.
Yeah.
But you think about betraying confidence. It's like broken trust. That's hurtful. It has a relational element to it also.
Yeah, and it's...
Nala, come here. Her tail is
wagging
whapping
her tail on the
set. Nala, come here, girl.
Nala, come.
Come
There
here.
you go. Good girl.
I'm afraid we're going to need a cleanup on aisle 4 over there. I don't know what she was doing.
Clean up on aisle 4.
No, and I think you raise a good point because, I'm preaching to the choir here. Like, this is something I constantly have to keep myself in check for, too. And I think the way I do it is I have to ask myself, if the person I'm sharing, and let's keep it in this context of prayer request, the person I'm sharing this information about, this prayer request, if they heard me right now using these words in this context, this much detail, would they feel cared for or would they feel betrayed?
That's good. Okay, so a couple quick questions. Let's think about this. Why do we gossip? Like let's get at that, and then we'll get at how we could stop, how we can work on it. Why do we gossip?
Yeah, I think going back to what I said about whether, again, it's intentional or not, like I think pointing out someone else's messiness helps me feel a little bit better about my own life and what I have put together. Sometimes I think people think they have a good story and they just can't keep it to themselves.
And there's something about if I tell you something that sort of piques your interest, like you're going to like me, you're going to accept me, right? You're going to need me because I have that.
This guy always has
it's
a good
power
story.
thing. Yeah. All right, let's talk about how we stop, because you said none of us would be pro-gossip, right? Just this interesting thing I found in Proverbs. It says, without wood, a fire goes out. Duh. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. So it's like, there's so much, we have enough angst and anxiety and conflict. It's like, if we will just sometimes stop talking about it, stop gossiping about it, stop, I think we seek a lot of advice a lot of times. It's just a way for us to vent in a lot of directions. Like sometimes if we would just stop talking, things will die out, right? Like if we will just stop having conversations, I'm not saying internalize it, have trusted people in your life. But it's like that should be a select small group of people. And if we'll just stop talking so much, the fire actually might die out on its own. And might it just lessen all of our relational stuff?
That's good.
I don't know.
Yeah, don't perpetuate it. It's easy to say, like, you're playing this card very safely because you're not the one who's spreading any of the information. But if you're allowing people to constantly spread it to you, like, to me, you're in the same camp there. You're an active listener. You're still participating in some way.
Oh, that's really good.
So how do we curb those around us who are doing the spreading?
So like, are you known as a person that people can bring all the juicy stuff to? Or are you known as a person who would go, nope, like we're not doing that here?
Right.
We want to be,
right.
We should want to be known as a
That
person who goes
goal.
like, no, I don't do gossip.
Yeah,
oh, that's really good.
I go back to that verse that you guys used last week. You said it earlier, the Ephesians 4 verse. You get to the end of that verse and it's that the speech that comes out of your mouth should be helpful to the people who are hearing. So like having the guts to say, you know what, hold up, before you go any further,
Yeah.
is whatever you're about to share, is it really
Yeah.
going to be helpful for me? Do I really need that information to pray better?
Right.
But like not being afraid to say those things.
That's good. That's good. Nala's over on the side of the set just taking another nap. Hey, big dog. Here.
We need to work on her catching skills.
Yeah, well, when we talk about any of this stuff, we mentioned this last week. The reality is for us, right? The very first line of defense against sin is the Holy Spirit of God, right? And so sometimes it's like, God, could you please put a guard over my mouth, right? To pray that psalm. Protect me from the words that are going to come out of my mouth.
And to help me not get sucked in when I start to hear it too.
Yep.
It's tempting on both sides.
Right. It's good. Nala, come here, girl. Come here.
Come on, let's come do a trick.
She's like, I don't want to get up. Let's show. Come on, we got to show the people a trick. Come here.
Close us out
Ready?
with a trick.
Ready? Can you sit down? Sit. Oh, that's a good girl. That's a good girl. So look, we've talked about cursing. We've talked about gossip. Our conversation is like, man, we're not being prudes here, right? But our words are a really big deal. And so let the Holy Spirit guide our words and use words to build people up.
No gossip.
Awesome. Hope you liked our friend Nala, and we're still working on the theme song. See you next time on Real Talk.